Hi, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of The Shahan Show, where nothing is off topic. I am your host, James Shahan, aka Shahan. That's my stage name, but we'll get into that later. First off, I know the camera, aka my phone, is in a weird angle. Sorry for that. I'll have to figure something else out in the future. I don't have a tripod yet. But for now, we'll see how that works. So, anyway, thank you so much for joining me on this new project, new adventure, new thing that I'm doing. Podcasting is something that I've thought about doing for a long time, that I've wanted to do for a long time. And, I've always talked myself out of it for one reason or another. Uh, Also, sorry I keep turning. I just want to make sure that things look good on my laptop here. I also have a soundboard on my laptop, so that might come into play later. Okay, so now that those preliminaries are out of the way, I figured the first episode would be it would be appropriate for the first episode to just sort of give you an introduction, let you know a bit more about me, let you know who I am. Some of you watching this or listening to this may not have any idea who I am. That's fine. We'll get to that. So, uh, yeah, as I said earlier, my name is James Shahan. I'm a rapper, producer, writer, um, I don't know, all around creative, I guess you could say. And as far as my socials and things like that, the focus is typically on my music and promoting that, my new music. I came out with a new album back in February called Music for Carnivores, which was written, produced, recorded, mixed, mastered entirely by me. I had some help from my wonderful friend Ed, also known as Maximum Croonage, as far as arranging the album and just getting feedback on the music. But I did most of the heavy lifting, I would say. So it's a project I'm really proud of. It's on all platforms if you want to check it out. A lot of people, as I was sort of asking about different topics and things that I could do for the show, for the pod show, as they call it, as Will Sasso, that's what he says anyway. Uh, a lot of people have been asking about my personal journey with music, how I got started, why I got started, how I decided to stick with it, that sort of thing. So I thought, okay, I think that would make for a good sort of introduction. So I'm from California originally, born and raised, and the way I got started in music was 12th grade. My best friend, his name was Omar, and me and him had, we were in 7th grade. We had a few classes together, and I remember in science, I think it was advanced science, whatever that means. You hear like, oh, advanced science and advanced English, and I mean, I still don't really know what that means other than you do more homework. But not to get lost on a tangent. Um, so we both listened to a lot of rap at the time. And he came to school one day, and Dr. Dre's 2001 had just come out, and we were both obsessed with it. And so he came to school, and he was like, yo, I wrote a rap. Like, I wrote a rap song. And I thought that was the coolest shit ever, because it was, we were both so fascinated by people like Dr. Dre, Eminem, Exhibit, uh, 50 Cent. I mean, he would be a little later, and I was just blown away. And especially, I don't know how this is going to sound, but he's Afghani. So even though Eminem was starting to break down sort of the barrier between, in people's minds, that people had between white rappers and the fact that they could be good. So here's this 12-year-old Afghani kid who's telling me that he wrote a rap song, and he's my fucking best friend. And so I was just like, dude, that is so cool. Like, I need to hear it. You have to. And he was like, yeah, we should do it together. Like, write raps with me. And my first reaction, I was like, I don't know, bro. Like, I'm not, I'm not cool. I'm not the cool kid. I was overweight. I didn't get picked on in middle school as much, but I had gotten picked on throughout my life and since kindergarten for my weight. So really didn't have a lot of confidence, didn't feel like any girls were interested in me or anything like that. And here he is asking me to rap with him. And so I thought it was super far-fetched. But he convinced me, and so we started writing songs together, and a lot of the times we would just do it over the phone. I'd call him or he'd call me. Be like, okay, what you got? Like, what's the song about? And then I would write while he was on the phone, and we'd go back and forth like that. And, we just kind of kept going down that road. Our first songs were not good. Definitely not good. Basura, as you would say in Spanish, which means trash. They were really bad. But we kept going. And, a year down the line, 2 years down the line, he decided he wanted to stop because he wasn't really enjoying mainstream rap anymore. What was coming out just didn't appeal to him, which I totally get. Of course, that was super crushing for me because I never saw myself as doing this on my own. I saw us doing it together. But something told me just to keep going. And I hit so many points throughout, the end of middle school, going into high school, even up until now. There have been so many points where I've wanted to quit or felt like I should quit just because I was frustrated, or when I was younger and super into my backpacker phase, I was like, oh, all this, everyone on the radio, they're just talking about bullshit and cars and women, and I'm just tired of it. And, but I always come back to it for some reason. It's just, I think at this point, it's just a part of me, So anyway, not to get too ahead of myself. So that's how I started. In high school, I ended up meeting some people through MySpace. No, the first person I met who helped me out, his name was Anthony. He was a friend. He was a mutual friend of one of my friends from school. She was like, "Yeah, you should meet this guy. Like, he does beats and blah blah blah." Uh, so we linked up, and he was much older than me, but we started doing songs together. I had put them on MySpace. He gave me this Radio Shack mixer that I could. Well, I tried recording with it, but it was kind of busted. So it was just a lot of static and stuff when I would try to record. But eventually I got like a computer mic and it wasn't great, but it was a little bit better. And then I got a new mixer and, you know, um, and I just started playing around and I learned how to record myself on my computer. I was using the first program I used was Acid, and it's basically a program with loops. So you have different loops of sounds that you arrange, and you can make beats and record in it and all that. And so I started recording and writing more in high school, and around 15, 16, I started to take it really seriously. And I was writing poetry at that time too. And this flip sort of happened where, because the poetry I was using to talk about really personal things or express how I was feeling, and the rap at that time was more so just talking about um, rap. I don't know, like talking about rap and how much better of a rapper than I was than other people, even though I was shit at the time. But that's what most people do, so you emulate, and that's how you learn. So I started recording music. I recorded over some of his beats. We made songs together, put them up on MySpace, and and then I started doing mixtapes in high school too. So rapping over beats that were popular at the time, which was great because copyright law was way. I don't want to say it wasn't as strict, but digital copyright law was not as strict. So if I put a remix up on YouTube, it wasn't like flagged for DMCA and, claimed by Sony or whatever. And yeah, so, the word got out that I rapped at school. Eventually, they had me rap at pep rallies and stuff. And which was funny because the song I performed at the pep rally was basically about how so many of the people there were really materialistic and shallow and all this, but everyone loved it. So I don't know. I don't know how that works, but um, and I sold some of my mixtapes to raise money to help pay for prom. Uh, but MySpace was a really great tool because I there was just something about MySpace that the barriers were low. I don't really know how else to describe it, but I had conversations with Flying Lotus on MySpace. I had messaged Black Milk about one of his songs and like I love this song, and he'd actually messaged me back, which was crazy. Uh, and I ended up meeting a couple people, Priceless and Diesel, two friends of mine, who I would go on to collaborate with a lot in the future. So it was a really great tool, and it was just a different time. I don't see social media being quite as helpful in the same way. It's hard to explain, but uh, so moving on from there, and I had gone through plenty of rap names that were terrible. At one point I was Optimus Rhyme. I know, it was really cringeworthy. Uh, I was B plus at one point. Nothing ever stuck though. I was always looking for a rap name. I felt like I needed a rap name. I needed a persona to adopt because I couldn't just rap as me. I didn't feel like people would accept that. It was still during a time where I would tell people that I rapped and they would laugh. It was just, again, a different time. There weren't any Post Malones or Jack Harlows or anything like that. We had Eminem. That was basically it. So everyone would compare me to Eminem. They still do, which makes me mad because it's like, okay, I don't sound like him. Uh, so you're pretty much just telling me that you don't listen to a lot of rap. Whatever. So I never really settled on a name at that time, but I had made a few what I would call mixtapes. And uh, after high school, I attended art school for a really brief stint. I dropped out after 3 weeks because there was just something in me. My gut was telling me that I was on the wrong path and I needed to stick with music. And so I dropped out. I was going to art school to be a game designer because I'm also a big gamer. Was more passionate about them, I'd say, as I when I was younger, but there's still certain. Oh, that's great. Yeah, just yawn on your podcast. That's great. I'm sure everyone is gonna love that. That's awesome. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Good job there with that one. Uh, so so yeah, I decided to drop out and I went to recording school instead up in Hollywood. It turned out to be a big waste of money. It was kind of a scam, that school. But I ended up meeting Ed, who I had mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, and and he's one of my best friends. I love him, and I also got my first real stage name at that school. So me, Ed, and a couple other guys in our class, we were studying one day. We were studying for a quiz, and our friend Fred, he was quizzing me with flashcards, and I was, he'd read me one question and I'd get it right. He'd read me another one and get it right. Another one, get it right. And he was like, man, he was from Atlanta. He goes, man, you like a machine. And something just clicked inside of me. And I was like, that's the one. I'm going to be the machine. And that was my first stage name. My first stage name was The Machine. So I ended up releasing 2 mixtapes and 1 album under that name. Well, 2 mixtapes, an album, and I think 2 EPs. My first mixtape was Fuck Swag, and I rapped over a bunch of popular beats and a bunch of beats from, I rapped over beats from Ed, beats from Priceless. Johnny, another friend of mine who was going by Amatsu at the time, and put it up on Dat Piff. Didn't get a lot of reception, but I was getting my name out there. I would record myself. Someone who worked at the school would let me come in certain weekends and record, which was awesome. So I recorded. I basically wheeled the computer into the booth with me and recorded myself on Pro Tools. And then a couple years after that, once I had graduated and I went back home to Orange County, and I was working 2 jobs, and then I quit one, and I was just working the other one, and then they let me go. It was like a mass layoff that they did. So I was getting unemployment and started working on more music, and I figured, okay, well, how am I going to get better? I want to get better. I need to practice. Well, how am I going to practice? Let me do I'll take 4 days and do as many songs as I can. So I had recorded something like 21, 25, something like 20 something songs I recorded in a 4-day period. And not all of them I wrote within those 4 days, but I think the majority of them I wrote within the 4 days. And I think it was a great exercise. I ended up taking the best songs from those sessions and releasing them as an EP with additional songs, and I called it 5 days. And then a while after that, I did another mixtape called Passing the Bar. I was inspired by Royce da 5'9's Bar Exam mixtapes and wanted to, I didn't think I was as good as him, but that's what I was shooting for. And I had Syra, who is a very successful musician, rapper. She won a Grammy years ago, so shout out to her. She hosted the mixtape for me, so her and I had some skits that we did on it. Yeah, so I put that out. I was very proud of it, and I was trying to get it heard, and I started spending hours every day sitting on Twitter, DMing people, trying to get it out there. And over time, I fell into a deep depression. I would wake up and wish that I hadn't, and I was suicidal, and I wasn't really aware of depression at the time, but conversations with friends sort of made me aware of it, and all that. So from there, I had a mutual friend of me and Priceless. He had his own studio at home in his place in California, and we had talked about me staying with him, living with him, and we would make music together. But I was just so depressed. Like I spent one night there, we did one song, and then I woke up and anxiety kicked in, and I was like, I can't fucking do this. My mom had lost her condo because prices in California were ridiculous. And she was going to move to Vegas because my cousin was out there. So I decided I'd move out there with her. So we both went to Vegas. And, I took some time off music. I took some time off everything because I was just in a really, really bad place. But started going to therapy for the first time. That helped. And I discovered the open mic scene in Vegas. Now, sorry for the pause there. Just took a sip of coffee. The open mic scene in Vegas was such a vital step in my development. I'd say both as an artist and just as a person. I'd gone to poetry readings before, but nothing quite like an open mic. And the good thing about open mics is that people tend to be overwhelmingly positive. So you get to test out new material in a safe environment. You get to make friends. And that's what I did. And it motivates you to write new material for, the open mic I went to is called The Human Experience. I don't know if it's still around. The venue is not around anymore. It was at the Beat Coffee House. And they had it every Monday. And the great thing about open mics is that it inspires you and motivates you to write something new or to perform something new, to memorize something new for every week. So you go there every week, you sign up, you do your thing, and you see how it goes. And that really started to give me more confidence as an artist and as a performer. I had done some shows in Orange County before I left. Ironically, like 19 years old, I made $100 for a half-hour set at the OC. No, I don't think it was the OC Tavern. I think it was called the Blue Lagoon down in Laguna Beach. And I think that's the most I've ever been paid for a show because the majority of shows I've played, I have not, I never got paid for. But anyway, so yeah, in Vegas, just building that community was really helpful to me. And over time, I decided, you know what? I think it's time to do my first album. So, and I wanted to do something different. So I started listening to a lot of Sonic Youth, Susie and the Banshees, things like that, like a lot of post-punk type stuff. And that was sort of a big influence on the sound for Selfish Bastard, which was my first album. With that album, I worked with some producers who worked with Danny Brown, so I was really happy with that. I got in onto Vice.com, super happy about that. They had some tweet or some article about like, oh, do you remember these toys called Mad Balls from the early 90s? If you send us some, we'll review your album. So I got some off eBay and I had them sent to this writer. And so she wrote a review for the album. And later, when I would move to New York, she was there and we talked on Twitter about getting lunch, and then I stopped hearing from her. And I kept reaching out. She ended up blocking me on Twitter. Cool story, bro. So, um, you know, those things happen. I mean, when I found that out, though,
You must be kidding, aren't you?
that's how I felt. I was like, you must be kidding. She was not kidding. I still don't know why she blocked me. She was probably just annoyed. But anyway, so the album came out, and I decided to change my name after the album came out, which was unfortunate. But it was because I was still going by The Machine, and Florence and the Machine had just gotten really big. So you looked for The Machine, and it was really hard to find. So I decided to change my name just to James Shahan. So, about a year or so after that, I decided I was going to go to New York. I had always loved New York, but I had never lived there. I'd just gone to visit. And I don't know. I just wanted to change the scenery. I wanted to do something different. It felt like the right thing because it was exciting. It was an adventure. And so I went. And I just had a bag full of clothes and albums. And I ended up giving my album to a lot of celebrities. I would just kind of wake up each morning, and I was staying with a friend of mine when I got there. And I'd wake up, and I went there with the intention of making it. I was like, okay, I'm going to stay positive. I'm going to use the law of attraction and manifest this, manifest my career. I'm not going to let negative thoughts get in my way. I'm just going to visualize, and this is going to happen. So I'd wake up in the morning, and I'd go out, and I'd basically just feel it out, and energetically feel like, okay, where do I want to go? And just kind of pick a place and hop on the subway and go there. And I ended up running into a lot of celebrities that way. I gave my first album to Janelle Monáe, Q-Tip, Questlove. I wrote this down because I forget some of them. John Legend. This dude who had worked with Pharrell. Ebro from the Peter Rosenberg radio show. A-Track, I ran into him a few times, actually. Lake Bell, the actress. Adriana Lima, the model. James, the dude from LCD Sound System. I handed all these people my album, like, personally, which is insane. But being in New York, if you just explore and if you follow your gut and just go where you feel like going, at least in my case, I ran into a lot of celebrities and a lot of people in the industry. Unfortunately, about a month and a half into my stay, I got kicked out of my friend's place, which I don't blame her for because I was being really selfish and sort of being one of those toxic law of attraction, love and light people of like, well, I'm just going to do this and I'm going to stay positive and I'm not going to worry about getting my own place or paying rent or a job because this is going to work for me. And this is the part of the podcast where Morgan Freeman comes in and says, James would soon find out that it did not, in fact, work for him. Yeah, it was a disaster. I was on the streets for 2 weeks, on and off. I mean, I was seeing this girl at the time, and so I'd stay with her sometimes, but I didn't stay with her that full time because we had just started going out, and I didn't want to be a burden to her. So when I wasn't staying with her, I was I slept on park benches, I slept in subway stations, or I just wouldn't sleep. And I'd end up, there was one day I went to Starbucks and I sat down in this chair with my coffee and I just fell asleep because I was so fucking tired. And when I woke up, there were 3 cops staring at me, and that was a little terrifying. But New York is such a police state, which blows. Or, I would just stay up until I could go back to her place. There was this 24-hour, I think they were a Russian restaurant, Veselka, if I remember correctly, was their name. So I just go there and stay up, and I bring my laptop. I mean, I had to bring my laptop with me, right? Because I didn't have anywhere to keep it. And I'd like put together music videos or just like sorry, I have like for people just listening to the audio, I keep messing with my nose because there's like this one mustache hair that keeps sticking in my nose, really bothering me. Sorry. I know that's that's not why you're listening to me. That's not why you're listening to a podcast, to hear about that.
Why, Lisa? Why, Lisa?
You're probably asking yourself that. Sorry. Okay. Yeah, so that was not a fun time. And eventually, and I was, at one point, I was trying to put out a new song every week. And I did that for a little bit, for a few weeks. And I was calling it Waif Wednesdays, where I put out a song every Wednesday. One of the songs, fun fact, is called Old Enough. I don't know if it's still on the internet. I had to take a bunch of songs off SoundCloud because I didn't want to pay them $15 a month for just to have like unlimited songs up there. But then when I stopped my premium membership, it said that, I didn't have enough storage, so I had to like delete songs. So I might have deleted it off there. If I did, I apologize. I'll try and re-upload it somewhere. But the song Old Enough, I recorded in a coffee shop bathroom. I would take my laptop, because my laptop broke when I was out there too, so the battery it didn't hold charge really. I think this was before that, because I would unplug my laptop, take it into the bathroom with me. I had my microphone directly out of my laptop, hold the laptop in one hand, the mic in the other, and record it. And I was a mess. But I was homeless at the time. Like, I didn't have anywhere to record. So, but the straw that broke the camel's back was I had been let go. I was working 2 jobs. One of the jobs I was working at a gym, and they let me go because I was like handing out flyers for the gym, but they wanted a woman. They wanted a female employee in that position instead. So they let me go, and I came in on Friday because they said they would have my last check, and I was supposed to play a show later that day. So I figured, okay, I'll pick up my check, deposit it. I've got like $5 in my bank account. So I'll deposit my check. I'll have enough money to go to my show because it's in Jersey. And then, I'll be good. I go to work. They don't have my check. Why don't they have my check? No one can tell me. And they say, well, just call corporate. So I call corporate. Those offices aren't open till Monday. So I call my mom. I'm like, hey, Mom, I'm so sorry to ask you this, but because she was already sending me money here and there because I wasn't really telling her what I was going through, but she could just hear that I was going through a bad time. I was like, hey, I went to get my final check today. They don't have it. They didn't tell me that they wouldn't have it, yada, yada. Is there any way you can just send me a little money until Monday? Because blah, blah, blah. She said, okay, I'll call you back and see if I can. So she calls me back a few minutes later, and I'm at the terminal station because I wanted to see how much the ticket was, and the ticket was like $10. And she was like, hey, Papa, it's a common, I'm Puerto Rican, Irish, Italian, and Papa's like a common Latin nickname. She was like, hey, Papa, sorry, I went to send you money, but the bank was closed. And so I can't send you anything. And I was like, oh, fuck, okay. And this was really before like Cash App and Venmo and all that really popped off. So I reached out to my dad, which I didn't want to do because him and I just reconnected, and that could be a whole other podcast. But I was like, hey, Dad, I can't afford this ticket. Is there any way you can send me money? And he was like, well, I can, but it would take a few days because my bank would have to, or my credit union would have to, confirm like a small deposit in your account, blah, blah, blah. I was like, okay. So I bought a scratch off lotto ticket. And I was like, all right, I just need $5. If I can win I spent $1 on the ticket, so really $6. If I could win $10, I can buy this ticket, go to my show, and then when I'm done performing, I can ask the crowd if they can lend me or if they can give me, $5-10 so I can get back home. So I buy one scratch off, I win $1. I bought another scratch off, didn't win anything. And so I canceled, I couldn't go to my own show. I couldn't afford the bus ticket to go play at my own show. And I just broke down in the station crying. And I was like, why am I fighting so hard to stay here? I love New York. I love New York with all my heart, but that shit was such a struggle. And it really, really broke my heart. And I told myself if I ever come back, it's going to have to be on my own terms because I can't do this anymore. So I decided to go back to Vegas, and I did. Moved in with my mom for a while. Someone I knew from my days when I wrote at a music magazine asked me if I was working on anything because she had new PR software she was working on. So she told me I would get free PR. And I was like, well, I wasn't going to work on anything because I was kind of done with music. But I'm getting free PR, and I didn't have PR before, so I'll do it. So I'm going to do it. And so I decided to make a second album, which was New Blue. And with New Blue, I still think it's my most underrated album The track list didn't have any names. It was just a palette of blues, of different shades of blue. All the songs, except for the first and last one, were named after different shades of blue. And that was the first album I really used vision boards for, or mood boards, I should say. And I had like blues on there, and I bought a new mic, which was from the Blue company. It's a Bluebird, which I went on to record Ex Machina and Music for Carnivores on as well. So there was really I put a lot of energy into that album as far as just putting as much blue energy into that album as I could, if that makes any sense. And I paid for a lot of the production. I did some of the production myself. And I talked to my PR person, and I did a full 3-month promo campaign leading up to the album. And the free PR she did, she basically had like a program she developed that I guess blasted it out, like did an automated blast to these different news outlets or blogs. And I also spent some of my own money. My mom gave me some money too, because I told her I was going to do a Kickstarter, and she was like, no, I don't want you asking people for money. I'll give you the money. I recorded the whole album myself, and then I re-recorded it and had it remixed and mastered in a professional studio. A friend of my cousin, he gave me, it was still like thousands of dollars. The album ended up costing between $4,000 and $5,000 between the production, the studio time, the new mic, the artwork, just everything. And it comes out after my 3-month promo run, and I sold about 30 copies. On social media, I had posted the cover art. The cover art was me in a suit, and the photo shoot also cost money. And I had like 200 and something likes on that photo, and I seemed to get a lot of engagement on socials around that album, but only around 30 people bought the album and supported me that way, which was a bummer. And it's funny because I was living in LA at the time, and I handed Big Sean a physical copy of the album. So I think I only pressed up like 25 copies. But yeah, and also just a quick side note, because a lot of people that I've spoken to about some of these experiences, they're like, well, but you gave so-and-so your album. How is it not? And it's like, well, yeah, but that ended up nothing came from that, not to say that it's too late for something to come from that, but I don't know. That's just how it goes. So when that album came out, I was really discouraged. And again, I came back to Vegas, and so I've always had these periods of time where I I've come out with an album, put so much energy into it, put energy into promoting it, creating it, and then I see it doesn't do well, or it does so much worse than my social media engagement leads me to believe. And I get really discouraged and I get depressed and all that. And I feel like quitting. And I put music down for a while. So, when I came back to Vegas, I really felt like I was done with music. Like I just really, I was like, I can't fucking do this anymore. I can't keep doing this to myself. And expecting, and I was also pedestalizing these albums and expecting them to save my life. Like I was going to put an album out, someone famous would see it and be my knight in shining armor. But that's not how it works. So when I came back to Vegas, I wrote a novel because I was like, well, I'm fucking done with music. I've always wanted to write a book. Let me do this as an outlet. And still working on getting that published. But again, that could be a whole other podcast. And then, as time went on, slowly but surely, I got the itch to do music again. Started doing more remixes and dipping my toe back in that way. And got the idea to do remixes on Instagram. Started by doing a remix a week and then eventually did a remix a day. And I ended up doing, I think, close to or just over 100 days in a row where I did a remix a day. The only bad thing about that, I mean, I got kind of burnt out, but aside from that, was that, it was all material that I couldn't really sell because they were remixes. And B, it wasn't really getting me new fans. The only thing that really got me new fans was an account that I had followed shared one of my remixes. And their account, they have a much bigger account than I do. And so I got like 40, 50 follows from that. And a handful of those people ended up becoming fans, which was awesome. I was like super stoked. But that's very rare. And present day, I do duets here and there, but you don't usually get reposted on other people's accounts that you do the duets with. So that's, kind of a bummer. And I'm still not really sure how to get new fans. I'm still trying to figure that out. But I started working on a new album, Ex Machina. Paid for more production, but I had some people who run music blogs and who've run hip hop blogs for a long time listen to music from New Blue. And one of the things they told me, even though they liked the music, they said that the mixing and mastering needed work. And I was like, well, fuck me. If I got this mixed and mastered in a professional studio by someone who knows what they're doing, and people are still telling me that it needs work, then I'm not going to drop thousands of dollars to get this done professionally just for people to tell me that it still doesn't sound, industry standard quality. That doesn't make any sense. Why still spend that money? Especially if I'm not, because I was losing money. I've been losing money on every album I've made. I think Music for Carnivores is the only one I didn't lose money on, and that's because I did everything myself. But Selfish Bastard, I lost, at least $1,000. I think I lost around $1,500 on Selfish Bastard because I paid someone locally to do the mixing and mastering, and that was $900, and then I was paying all the producers and all that, and I didn't sell a whole lot. New Blue, some of that money was my mom's, but I probably lost another 1,000 or so on that, and she lost a few thousand. Ex Machina, I lost money on because I was paying producers. And, and I still did a 3-month promo run, and it really wasn't performing how I wanted. And, streams were okay, I guess, but I wasn't making money from that. And I hardly sold any copies. And, again, I just put out a new album, and I've sold Music for Carnivores. I sold probably 10 or 15. But because I did all the production myself, that's a profit. So that's nice. And I just want to look at my notes real quick because I want to see if there's anything. And I don't mean, I don't mean to victimize myself, and I don't mean to be like a negative Nancy. I really don't want to bum people out with my journey, but these are certain things that a lot of people, I feel like, just don't know about me. And maybe it looks a certain way from the outside. That's not really indicative of how things are actually, or how things actually go when I put out an album. Let's see. So when I was working on New Blue, because sometimes people ask me, well, why don't you get a manager? Or have you ever had a manager? And I say, well, I don't really know how to get a manager. I need some water. I'm going to drink some water. Oh, yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's good. I've only had one manager throughout my career. This was when I was working on New Blue. And I was working at a restaurant part-time, so I really wasn't making a lot of money. But he really believed in my music. And so I decided to partner with him, but the only issue was the contract was bad. Even though he was, at that time, the boyfriend of my assistant manager at work, who I was actually really good friends with. The contract was he was charging me $300 a month plus whatever business fees there were. So on top of the $300 a month, like he told me to get stickers made, I had to pay for that. He told me to press up physical copies, I paid for that out of my pocket. And then after 3 months, the contract said, it was a 3-month retainer. After the 3 months, we would evaluate, and then he would work for me for a percentage. And looking back, it was kind of foolish of me to not stick with him after the 3 months because, a percentage would have saved me money. But I was paying him, and he wasn't really doing anything for me. He wasn't paying for the CDs. He wasn't paying for the stickers. He had talked to a radio station about my music, but they wanted, they were like, oh my God, his songs are so good. Why aren't they on the radio already? We're super interested. It was like college radio. We want to play his songs, and it's going to be like $2,000 or whatever it was. And I'm like, bro, I'm living with my mom. I'm working part-time. I can't afford that. I'm paying you 300 like off the top before anything else. I can't afford this shit. And he laughed and told me that, I should look into taking out a bank loan. And, or maybe he would ask his girlfriend for the money. And, so I didn't feel like it was a good fit. So I cut things off with him after 3 months. And I haven't had a manager since. Not necessarily because I don't want one, but the only advice you find, or the only advice I've found, because I've done a lot of research on what other people's journeys have been like. And from my experience and my research, it always seems to go something like this. So and so was born here. They started making music at this age where they played at these venues. They started working with these people. And then something happened. Something miraculous and mysterious and very nebulous happened. And they met X person. They met their manager, or they met someone who already had a career who took them under their wing, or, they met someone who changed things for them. And then there was a quantum leap in their career where they were in a position of opportunity. But the details of how they meet those people are never given. And that's the kicker. That is part of why I think it's so hard to break through in these industries, is because the people who are telling these stories and sharing these stories leave it mysterious and vague on purpose, so that it feels even more like it's winning a lottery ticket. Because if they give you the recipe, it's way easier to make. But you can't make a chocolate chip cookie if they tell you, okay, buy flour, buy eggs, and buy milk. Okay, great. Well, what about the sugar? What about the chocolate chips? They'll find you. Yeah. Yeah, when you're ready for them, when you're ready for a manager, when you're ready for the chocolate chips, when you make it to that point, they'll find you. Yeah. Okay, but isn't there any way I can increase my chance of finding job? They'll find you. Yeah. Well, how did this person get chocolate chips? They found them. They just happened to find them. Yeah. Isn't that great? Isn't that grand? Isn't that grand? So, I'm at the point in my career that I've been in for almost all of my career, which is, it always feels like I'm starting from square one, because I don't have a team. I don't have anyone to help me, really. I don't have someone to help me do social media, which admittedly I'm not good at, because I feel like the more time I spend on social media, the worse my mental health is. I don't have someone to help me do videos or raise money, or, I just, and again, I don't want to victimize myself or make excuses, but I'm so tired of having to do everything myself. And not only that, but, I'm not, as much as the narrative these days is, oh, if you're an artist, you're a content creator. You have to be a content creator. You have to be a social media manager. You have to be I'm not. I'm not these people. That's not how my brain works. And, sure, I could take the time to learn these things, maybe, but there are people who can do these things way more effectively than I can. And their minds work in that way. where mine just doesn't. So some people might think that's making excuses for myself. That's just the fucking truth. That's just how I feel. That's my reality. That's me being honest. So I'm at the point in my career where I just really hope that I can find, I just want my team, you know? I want to build a team of people that we can come up together and bring each other up together. Music for Carnivores, I've submitted to over 100, I think 115 now, different blogs or record labels or, influencers and I've gotten on maybe 2 or 3 Spotify playlists, and the rest of my submissions have either been rejections or no response, which is a rejection. And that's not an effective model of doing things. You know what I mean? Like the rate of return, or the return on investment rather. I was trying to think of it in my head. I was like, I know. What does ROI stand for again? The ROI, the return on investment, is so low. So low. So I'm at this point where I have this album that I think is my best work, and I'm super proud of it, and I don't fucking know what to do with it. Because I feel like posting about it isn't doing a lot because of the algorithm, and that's also not getting new fans. I'm not working a ton right now, so money is limited for me. But then me doing the groundwork and sending it to all these different people and places and labels, the return on investment is just awful. So I'm really not sure what to do or where to go from here. And, as a 34-year-old who, I've been rapping I started rapping when I was 12. I've been rapping for 22 years now. And I've been performing for about 17 years. So as a 34-year-old artist who feels like every time they put out this body of work or a project, or even every time they put out a single or a remix, they feel like they're starting from square one, or they don't know what to do because they don't know what they should be doing or how to do things effectively. It's tough. It takes a toll mentally and emotionally sometimes. Like Music for Carnivores, I produced myself because I wasn't in a position where I could pay other producers. Especially when I would pay a producer $200 for a beat and to make a song that they would never promote. And then this happened to me back in November of last year. I was scammed by someone on Twitter. Long story short, they posted something about like, drop your Spotify links down below. If your music's good, like I can submit it I have a list of contacts. So I dropped one of my songs from Music for Carnival. No, I dropped, I think it was I Don't Want to Live in America. And they DM'd me and they're like, this is really good. I think, please submit your music through my website so that way we can get it to the right people. So I go on their website. It looks legitimate. Everything on their online presence looks legitimate. And this person's name is Brad Murphy. So if you ever get any artists out there, if you're ever approached by someone named Brad Murphy. Bald white dude, has glasses. Stay the fuck away from him. Stay away from him. He's a piece of shit. So I went on his website. It looked legitimate. He had a submission form. It was like $150. You submit your song. I have X amount of contacts, TikTok influencers I'll send your music to. I know A&Rs at record labels and blah, blah, blah. So I submit my music to him. And no, actually, I emailed him because I was like, hey, I'm working on a new album. It's not out yet, but can I submit that music? Does it matter? And he was like, yeah, you can submit that unreleased music. So I submitted it to him. And he was like, man, like, your music's so good. Your music is so needed at this time. I have a contact at Sony who's he really likes this. He's really interested. He thinks we might be able to get you a deal. But I'm going to need an extra 250 pounds. He needs that money for his time. Or no, he said 500 pounds, but I'm willing to go halfway. I'm willing to pay half with you. So you just have to pay me 250 pounds, British pounds. And I didn't even have an income at the time. But, I took a leap of faith and I thought it was legitimate. So I paid it, and he kept coming back to me with the same story of like, okay, he pushed it up to the next level, and they want to give you a 360 deal and this and that, but again, for his time, or like to push it all the way up to the top, he needs more money and blah blah blah. So I don't know why I said that like Jean-Claude Van Damme. I basically paid this guy all my money for this bullshit. But yeah, I basically blew all the money that I had, which was around $1,000, on this bogus opportunity that was never real. So learning lesson for sure. Artists out there, if you talk to anyone who asks you for money, for promotion, or even says, especially if they say like, oh, this label is interested in you, but they want money from you. No, that's not. A record label is not going to have you pay if they're interested in you. And at that point, you always, before you pay anything, you always have the option of saying, okay, well, write up a contract and stating that, I'll pay this much and this is what the deliverables are. And if you don't deliver what you're promising me, then you'll give me my money back, or else there will be legal ramifications. Really just stick up for yourself and stick up for your music, because you're worth it and you have value and your music has value no matter how many people are listening to you. But yeah, I lost all of my money at the end of last year, and luckily I've been working. Again, it's very little, very sporadic work. I'm doing freelance work, but I have at least a little bit coming in, a little bit. And I had a nice tax return, it gave me some padding, gave me some of that money back. But yeah, so as far as my music career, I really don't know what the next step is. Still trying to figure it out. A lot of days it feels hopeless because I just feel like I can't invest in social media super heavily without it taking a toll on my mental health. but I can't go anywhere with my music if I don't invest super heavily in social media. And it just becomes a vicious cycle, a feedback loop in my mind that's not good for me. But I don't know. So hopefully I figure something out or uh, meet the people that want to team up with me. We'll see. But yeah, that's been my music journey in a nutshell. In an hour and 15-minute nutshell. My God, this has flown by. But uh, I guess that concludes our first episode. I don't have too much else to talk about on this topic, but I sure do appreciate you taking your time to watch this video or to listen. And if you enjoy it, make sure to like, subscribe, smash that bell for notifications. We could keep this train rolling if you smash that like button and just demolish that subscribe. No, but if you do enjoy this kind of thing and you'd like to see more of it, commenting or subscribing is a great way to let me know. If you have suggestions for future episodes on topics that you'd like to hear me talk about, or different people that you'd like to see me talk to within the realm of possibility, please let me know that as well. I had the desire to be seen in a different way than just rapping into my phone camera or vlogging. And I feel that this might be a good outlet for me, but I also want it to be enjoyable for you, for whoever's watching or listening. So with that being said, thank you again so much for your time. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you again in the next episode. Until then, thank you. Stay safe, be healthy, and wherever you go, there you are.